Every Wednesday morning after our 10 a.m. update, we check in with our friends in Ottawa at the Blacklocks Reporter. This is the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering our nation's capital. The managing editor there is Tom Korski, who joins us for these weekly chats. Mr. Korski, good morning.
Morning, Mike.
The Auditor General had her say earlier this week. We were looking forward to this as much as one can look forward to an AG's report. But a couple of things jump out, one regarding foreign students, another regarding the RCMP. Let's start on the students' side of things, Tom. Apparently, we weren't even bothering to follow up with those who may have been here under fraudulent basis.
Astonishing audit, Mike. It's a devastating audit. And I don't know why the minister hasn't resigned. I'm serious. The auditors, and I have to say Auditor General Karen Hogan is not a real hellraiser as far as auditors go. And so she's pretty buttoned down. When Auditor Hogan comes in with a report like this, you say, my goodness, what did she say? She said the department did not care about suspected fraud. Even when they learned of suspected fraud, they did not care. And this was not incidental. This involved hundreds of cases where they bothered to make cursory investigations. And further, that they lost track of many, many tens of thousands of foreign students. The implication was clear, Mike, that a couple of things happened. There were, whether they were brokers or whether they were wily individuals, were gaming the system. They were short-circuiting the entire immigration system to under the guise of being students, air quotes, foreign students. And the other implication was, and this has been demonstrated by some of the documents we've seen from the Department of Employment, it cost Canadian students jobs. And it wasn't incidental. It was the jobless rate for Canadian students, college universities, was 19%. And it went through the roof the very minute that Cabinet lifted regulations that capped the number of hours foreign students could work in the labor force. So here you look at a single policy, it's spectacular. It inspired fraud that was never checked, and it cost Canadians jobs. Like, talk about getting it coming and gone.
Well, and yes, that and the fact that the immigration minister continues to insist we were doing our job, but isn't your job to follow up on those fraudulent cases that you were well aware of? Like, how does that not get done?
I think I can answer that question. It's not entirely supposition based on some of the public statements from the past and some of the internal records we've seen. You do ask yourself, what were they thinking? They convinced themselves of an economic theory. It's a peculiar economic theory, and we don't know what convinced them, but they were convinced that they needed immigrants to fund their unfunded social programs and help pay some of their deficits. And they convinced themselves the more, the merrier. This was literally the immigration policy. The more the merrier. If it's pedicab drivers from Jakarta gaming the system through fraud, whatever, Mike, they're going to come to Canada, they're going to settle down, and they're going to pay our taxes, and they're going to help us out of our financial problems. All of those suppositions are wrong. I can point you to Bank of Canada research that says that is literally untrue, but that was the philosophy. Because otherwise you'd have to say, this is reckless to a degree that's spectacular. You couldn't run a food truck this way. But that's how they ran the immigration policy of a G7 country.
And on the RCMP front, Tom, I mean, so much money spent on recruitment, on training, and yet we are still short thousands of RCMP officers. Recruitment
has been a problem for years, for about 10 to 15 years. For the longest time, they said it was because Mounties weren't unionized and they couldn't compete with municipal pay scales. And indeed, the Mounties were underpaid compared to municipal police forces that had unions. That's not an excuse anymore. They've been unionized for a decade. Whatever their difficulty is, they're spending a lot of money not solving it. Auditor comes up with a figure. The cost to attract and train a new constable is $247,000 at the RCMP. These are not astronauts or biochemists. Literally, to train and hire a constable, over $250,000 is your average cost. And they still can't get enough to train and hire, to which the commissioner said, we move forward. That was his statement, quote, end of quote. They're not getting it done, Mike.
We are moving forward, Tom. Every day is one day closer to the time that we must declare our illegal firearms in this country. Our public safety minister remains, cautiously optimistic that firearms owners are going to sign on to this buyback program?
Well, he's caution and optimism are the only two tools he has, because the deadline is the end of the month. This is to register for compensation purposes assault-style, air quotes, assault-style firearms. They count about 166,000 of them. Fewer than a third have been registered by owners for compensation. The amnesty period on people who own these now blacklisted firearms expires at Halloween. So the Minister of Public Safety, Gary Anandasangri, faces the prospect that literally tens of thousands of firearms owners are going to be subject to criminal prosecution. Although we know that there are many police forces have said, we want nothing to do with this. This looks like a boar's nest, not interested. It's not fighting crime. What is it about? Well, we know, actually, Gary said so in a conversation with a constituent. You remember that, Mike, back last fall. It was recorded and leaked. He said this was about politics in Quebec, getting 43 Liberal MPs reelected. That's not going to get it done. So anyway, he's counting down the hours on their self-imposed deadline. This has Lusitania written all over it.
I love the reference. I love it. And remind me again, Tom, this is a $750 million, $750 million program, and hope is the plan. I think I've heard that hope is no kind of plan.
Well, cautious.
Cautious hope.
They even had to qualify the hope.
Cautiously hopeful. Okay, federally, we spent $2 billion on electric bus subsidies. How's our ROI on that one, Tom?
This is fascinating. They did. This was a program by Environment Minister Catherine McKenna in the day, and it was to pay municipalities to buy electric buses, which everyone knows are more expensive than diesel buses. But climate, it was about the children, she said. And the Department of Environment and Cabinet was asked, what research, now that you've had 5 years' worth of practical experience and paid out billions and billions of dollars, paid out about $2.3 billion so far, how are those buses doing in the winter months with the minus 20 and the snow? And they came back and said in a document table in Cabinet, well, we don't know because we never asked and no one ever told us. By the way, you don't have to be a car guy. Cornell University actually looked into this upstate New York. And they looked at winter driving conditions for battery electric buses in upstate New York, where they do have winter, everyone knows. And apparently, Mike, I hope you're sitting down for this, it's really bad. When it gets cold, the life of the battery drops like a stone, and then your costs go up. And we know there's even to the point where some electric buses, air quotes, have diesel backup. So you come up with the most expensive option that does the least for the environment. But they didn't follow the science, Mike. It was kind of a philosophy. It was cautious hope for $2 billion.
I cautiously hope we'll see some of that money again someday.
Never.
Tom. No.
You know that.
True story. Right here where I live, we also brought in some electric buses, and then we had to pull them off the road because they did not have enough charge in that battery, Tom, to run the route it was assigned to run.
Oh, Mike, in Edmonton, city of Edmonton, they pulled half their electric buses off the road. They get minus 30 like nobody's business. Anyone who's ever tried to run a battery for any purpose, taken a photo, it doesn't matter. When it gets down to minus 20, forget it. Anyone could have told them that.
All right, one more before I let you go, and I want to still focus on this ROI idea here, because the money that has been provided Canada Post for emergency financing. I hate to keep coming back to Canada Post, but what's our ROI there?
Well, it turns out that it is only figuratively, really philosophically called a loan. Over $2 billion has gone by Cabinet to Canada Post. By the way, this was to keep them from literally shutting down operations, according to Cabinet and according to the Post Office management. $2 billion went out, not a loan per se. There's no interest charged. Well, who wouldn't love this? And there's no schedule of repayment. So you don't have to pay interest, and you get around to repaying the taxpayers when you feel like it. The legislators are getting very nervous, Mike. A lot of money has gone out for Canada Post to cover these, save them from insolvency, and they don't see any reforms happening. They've been very slow. And as one MP put it in the Public Accounts Committee, this is like throwing money down a toilet, but this is many, many billions of dollars.
Perhaps I could start my own corporation and call it Canada Paste or something and get one of those loans that don't have a repayment schedule or interest attached to them.
I love the language, though. When they do, they call it a loan, because you don't want to call it a giveaway or a boondoggle. That's just a pejorative. That gets taxpayers upset. If you call it a loan, it's like no one maybe will even notice.
Let's not pay attention. I'm glad you are, Tom. I'm glad you are, and I appreciate these chats each week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Tom Korski, managing editor at the Blacklocks Reporter, joins us every Wednesday morning just after our 10 a.m. update as we mind Ottawa's business with the Blacklocks Reporter. You can find more of those stories or stories just like that at blacklocks.ca. Well worth your subscription at blacklocks.ca. Tom Korski, managing editor there, joins us every Wednesday morning here on The Mike Farwell Show.